Okay, welcome to this week's episode of the Sales Confidence podcast. My name's James Ski, the CEO and founder of Sales Confidence, and we're building the world's largest and most valuable B2B sales community. Super excited this week to have Anand Shah, who is the CEO and co-founder of Databook. Databook is a SaaS platform that delivers real-time company intelligence to sales teams on their prospects and customers. So essentially, Databook helps equip sellers with the relevant information and automatically suggest sales plays around financial performance, management intent, strategic priorities, and the buying cycle of your prospects. So if you are working on enterprise-sized deals and you're mapping out your account and you want to add value at each stage of the process, Databook is a platform that you should check out. Thanks for being here today, Anand. Super excited to learn more about your story and what you've built over at Databook. Just to open up the conversation, love to hear about what you're most excited about today.
Well, obviously, this year in the SaaS world has been, kind of a bit of a game of two halves. The first half of the year has been pretty good, and the second half of the year has been pretty bad. So I'm most excited about the optimism I have for 2023 and going forward. I think 2 years ago with COVID and now with the market, the economy itself, I think there's an opportunity for sellers and enterprise sellers in particular to do some very, very interesting things going forward. So I'm most optimistic just really about the opportunity for change and what that means in terms of sales techniques and ultimately providing value to customers in an even more focused, customer-driven, outcome-based way going forward.
Yeah, I love hearing about the optimism as we all should be. As a kind of former enterprise seller myself, I've been really infused by the power of Databook. So looking forward to learning more about it. But to begin with, I'd just like to start with yourself and learn about you as a kind of a founder and CEO. In terms of the first thing that you think about when you wake up, what's the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning?
I'm usually thinking about it before I wake up, but it's typically around the business. It's around my people. It's around priorities that we have right now this week that need to be solved. And so, a lot of this tends to, as the business is growing from a smaller business to a larger business, tends to be people oriented and then focused on the customers and how we're going to solve big problems for our customers. So we're very, very focused company around making sure that we drive outcomes and drive high impact for our customers. And then that always translates back to priorities and then people and how we're going to solve that in terms of execution. So a little bit sad. I think about work a lot. It's kind of like 24/7, but we're trying to do something really tough here. And so it just requires a full amount of attention.
Absolutely. Well, it's not unusual, when it's your baby and you're building such a fantastic product and solution. So I'm not entirely surprised. Thinking about your background, though, to get to this point, you spent a larger proportion of your career, it seems, in consulting before you developed the vision for Databook. Like, just along the journey that you've been on to become this founder and CEO, like where's your inspiration and motivation come from to embark on this adventure that you've been on for the last few years?
I would say the main things probably for a very, very long time, maybe 30 years, potentially 25 years. I've always had some interest in being quite entrepreneurial. Maybe I just got that through the family. I've got a lot of family of entrepreneurs, mother, father, uncles, aunts, cousins, grandfather. A lot of people in my family are entrepreneurs. And so as soon as I finished school, I was like, oh no, I want to go and be a white collar worker in the city. So I think I ended up doing that work and building experience, but I always had this urge to go and build a business or do something on my own. And so the entrepreneurship just came along the way. Where do I get my urgency, or where do I get my passion for what we're doing? I guess a lot of that comes from studying computer science at university, and then a background as well in finance and then in consulting. So I sort of blended the business and the technology. And as I've seen the last sort of decade or sort of 2 decades really sort of play out, digital technologies have become more and more important. And the key opportunity is really the application in terms of business. And so I think just meeting in the middle, my skills and experiences and my interest in driving change and helping other people have made me really think through how Databook could go and solve big problems here and be a big platform for enterprise sellers to do things even better, faster than they have before. So got encouraged early on, got some results, and sort of just said, yeah, I want to then scale it out and see if we can help more people in their own careers.
Fantastic. And thinking about the fact that you've built a product for enterprise sellers and the sales profession, like where was your first experience of sales? Like where did that come from? Either you selling a service or you being on the receiving end of a sales professional or business person?
Yeah, I mean, because my father and mother own family-run businesses. I've kind of grown up in a very sales-oriented situation, but those are more on the B2C side. So I'll discount those for a minute, and then I think from a sort of a B2B perspective, I think my first sale was about 3 years into my consulting career, and typically that doesn't happen in consulting. You're typically selling something maybe after 5, 6, 7 years minimum. Once you've kind of built a team, you've run the execution, the process, you've managed multiple projects. I ended up doing a piece of work for an investment bank in London, and it went very well. And there was another group within the same investment bank that wanted a very similar type of support and analysis. And so I ended up going to meet with the executives and talking to them about what we had just done, classic reference selling. And then they say, great, can you draw up an order form? Let's get started next week. And consulting things can start within a couple of weeks. You don't have to take 6 to 9 months on a SaaS sales cycle. Then you just got to build a team, and then there you go. So that was kind of one of my first experiences of, oh, it's as easy as that. Okay, great. Okay, if I just have to drive value for one customer, talk about the value to another customer, and then build a team, give them a contract, why can't sales always be like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It would make our lives a lot easier if we could win every business deal like that one. Thinking about the steps you progressed in your consulting career, like what do you think made you successful as an individual in terms of delivering value for your clients, and how you evolved and built your career before you got to that point where you said, look, I'm ready to go and be a founder now?
Probably lots of different experiences over the time period. I've had some great consulting projects where I learned a ton, got to engage with really great customers, built some really detailed analysis. I've had a couple of projects where, quite frankly, they weren't the most exciting, but even during those less exciting ones, you kind of learn something through the process and working with the team and looking at different systems. So I think just over time, I would say I've learned different things. Pre-MBA, quite a lot around project management, project delivery. Post-MBA, a lot about building a mini business within a larger organization. And then 6 years ago when we were starting Databook, then doing that at scale, independent of having a lot of backing and a brand and everything else. And so just different parts of the career journey. It's never a straight line. There's always going to be ups and downs, and just being able to keep learning along the way. I'd say that's probably the biggest learning I've picked up.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing. So you mentioned Databook there, and obviously that's the company that you've built. What was the inspiration? Like, where was the seed of the idea where you, and I'm guessing maybe a group of people thought, like, this is absolutely what we need to build? And what was the problem you were trying to solve?
Yeah, so I sort of I'll call it the sort of first half and the second half of my career in consulting. The second half of my career in consulting, I ended up doing a lot of strategic selling. And as part of doing that strategic selling, we had to go and diagnose what the customer really wanted and needed to go and do next to drive more value in their business. And so creating a methodology and an approach for how you might go and look at that company and assess their strengths and their weaknesses, and then identify the pains and the urgencies and what would be potential solution areas and key people, executives who've got that urgency to do something. That was something that I spent a long time on. And so when I kind of left consulting, moved to the Bay Area, I've been here now 8 years. goes quickly. One of the first things I was starting to think about was how could something like that, which was very manual intensive, took a long time, how could that be digital, fast, quick, and do things which humans frankly can't do? The amount of analysis that me and a team of 65 people could go do in a given year was a maximum of 300 to 400 accounts, extremely high quality, and you had to make sure the quality assurance was there. In the last 12 months, I think across all of our customer base, we're talking about over 500,000 to 1 million accounts which are being analyzed and researched on an annual basis. It's probably even more. I haven't even looked at the stats, but the ability to scale through the cloud, through having real-time intelligence, and then making that available and personalized to each individual seller within their organization. Whether you are Microsoft selling to Nike, or you are Salesforce selling to DuPont, or it could be, let's say, Databricks selling to Starbucks, just to be available for them, personalized and real time for their organizations is what we're all about.
Fantastic. And thinking about the individuals within a sales organization, who gets the most value out of using Databook in their sales process?
Probably the account executives. So the account execs, account directors, the ones who are owning the quota, and they need to go and build relationships. They need to have a distinctive point of view. That's probably about over 75% of our audience who are leveraging Databook today. As you know, James, because of your own career, there are other supporting cast members in there, whether it's a BDR, SDR, might be another 5-10%. Could be solution consultants, another 5-10%, value engineers, industry principals, sales leadership. That kind of makes up the balance, but predominantly it's the account executives.
Got you. And you mentioned early on in this conversation about your optimism for 2023 and how you're continuing to support enterprise sellers. Like, what's the long-term ambition for you and Databook? Like, what are you ultimately looking to achieve as a business long-term?
Yeah, I mean, I think the my history of coming from consulting, and even the roots of how we started it, my co-founder Alex and I, we were just sort of thinking about how can enterprise sellers be more consultative, more like advisors. And I think my optimism is really for 2023 onwards. I think there's been such a distinct change in the way in which SaaS companies, in particular, invest into their businesses and sales and marketing. All of these companies are having to do more with less, and then that requires more intelligence, that requires more focus on the customer. So I'm just feeling good that going forward, the overall enterprise sales industry will benefit from having the right tools in place for them to be strategic about how they build those relationships. And going forward, I think we will see in the next 5-10 years a very, very big difference between the future enterprise seller and the historical enterprise seller. Someone who's perhaps a little bit more analytical, someone who's always building executive tier one C-suite relationships, and someone who's also going to be extremely empowered to bring a very distinctive point of view, which they probably think more strategy consulting. They're going to be able to have that at their fingertips and be even more relevant to the customers.
I think that's a fantastic viewpoint. When you think about the expectation on the buying committee, particularly within larger companies now, they expect the enterprise seller to be an expert in their business, and that requires time, investment in understanding our business. But to have that at your fingertips, to be able to be over prepared when you're going into a conversation, at the beginning of the cycle or mid-cycle or later in the sales cycle, is really powerful. And I think you make some important points around, how enterprise sellers are just, there's more expectation on what value they can bring to the buyers, and how they can be informed with the right information at the right time is hugely important. So I think I'm aligned with that.
And James, just to finish off the thing, you said, where's the vision going forward? Our goal is really to be like the Bloomberg for sales, something which is on the desktop, available on the mobile for every enterprise seller. So think about the ubiquity of CRM, and how far and wide a Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics have gone, our goal is to pair up Databook with every enterprise CRM license so that every enterprise seller has a fair and unfair access to all of these insights.
Fantastic. That's exciting. So I guess, in building this business, you've had to hire a lot of people. What do you look for in individuals that you bring into Databook? Like, what's the DNA of Databook, and that makes it an attractive place to work? But what are the type of people that you like to bring into the business?
Yeah, actually, we just put out a company culture profile actually a couple of weeks ago, and we've been surveying. We continuously survey our team on engagement and things we can improve and do better. And I think the focus for us is making sure we have people with the right attitude, people who really want to be interested in this particular domain in enterprise sales, folks with the right skills and experience. One of the things I'm looking for more so, rather than necessarily relevant experience, it's kind of determined experience. It's almost the ones that have been doing a particular role for a longer period of time. That's often a truer test, in my view, for folks who have got the grit, the determination to go and build skills in a particular career or education or certification. So that's always really, really helpful. So desire and sort of attitude, and experience and seeing long-term initiatives. So it's not just sort of moving from one company to the other every year or two.
I like that. So you're interested in people's loyalty to the cause that you're building on. Bringing it on to sales now, a little bit more kind of tactical. Is there a sales book or business book that's kind of influenced you in building this business that kind of stands out for you?
Sure. I mean, I've got a range of books behind me. I'm not sure I'll pick out one of those, but like one that sort of comes to mind is Malcolm Gladwell, Blink. And I don't know if you read this book, but it's a fantastic analysis of how some of the leading experts became experts. And I think that's one thing for me I always think about is the 10,000 hour rule. And so that stuck with me. If you want to go and be an expert, if you want to be really good in your profession, put the commitment, put the time into it. And so 10,000 hours in the world of enterprise sales looks like 40 hours a week of doing enterprise selling, 45 weeks in a year. That's about 5 to 6 years just as an individual contributor to get to about 10,000 hours. And at that point, you should be very, very skilled at being able to engage executives in the C-suite and being able to entice them with the right solutions that meet their needs, that drive impact. And so I think from a business perspective, that one stuck with me. I feel like I've done maybe 20,000 hours in this particular domain around executive selling, strategic selling. But that's the area that I love the most and I'm very, very passionate about.
Well, I guess you've touched then on my next question a little bit around expectations, around what are the attributes you like to see in an enterprise seller, like being an expert, bringing up to date information to the party. But is there anything else that you feel like the best salespeople, the ones that maybe take advantage of Databook more than others, like what is it that gives those top performing like enterprise sales reps an edge over their peers, in your opinion?
I think it's probably curiosity to learn. And so, I know that this podcast is called Sales Confidence, and you see a lot of enterprise sellers requiring a lot of confidence in their roles. And so over periods of time, you build that up through learning the trade, learning the skills. It's certainly a career where it's hard to kind of do classroom-based teaching. You got to go learn some hard lessons. But the ones who I find are doing the best often are just the most curious and willing to learn and do something different and try. So what got you here won't necessarily get you there. And so it does require some adjustments. And so that's probably the one thing I've noticed working with dozens and dozens of enterprise sellers individually. I mean, we support thousands, tens of thousands of customer users, but just individually, I find that curiosity is probably number one. And then the second one would be their ability to build relationships for the long term. And so these are not transactions where you try and get a deal done quickly by the end of the quarter. These are multiple quarters, multiple year relationships where you can continue to engage, support, refer with individuals, everyone that you've met with.
Great advice. And would you have some advice for those that, I mean, you mentioned a couple of attributes there in terms of, curiosity and the willingness to learn and build relationships. But, if there's someone was listening to this and they're not quite enterprise level yet, they're aspiring to kind of get to that level, like where do you feel they need to double down to be able to make that successful transition and prepare themselves to really start taking on enterprise sales?
It's a good question, James. I mean, I think that there's probably a degree of just learning the craft and then trying to understand why something might be happening. So you could pick a particular account or a deal that you're working on, or look at a series of them, try to understand the realities of why a customer might or might need to buy in a sort of more detailed way. So if you aren't in enterprise selling, the assumption is that everyone's kind of doing that. If you're not doing that today, enterprise selling, you probably just want to understand a little bit more what would be the real reasons behind a purchase. And so go beyond some of the lower value transactional kind of sales and try and think through, how would I be able to even encourage, or what would it mean for a customer to buy the full boat of our solutions in hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars? What would they need to be doing or thinking? And how can I present this solution in that way? Just maybe that's a bit, goes back to that curiosity, just thinking a little bit more broader, what would it take? And then from that perspective, then engage with peers, engage with senior leaders in your organization, and have a discussion with them as to how could you maybe even start to help the customer to think that way.
Lovely, great advice. So taking this on the a little bit more personal now, we obviously emphasize the power of confidence as a sales professional or a leader or a founder. It takes a lot to raise funding for a business like this, continually infuse your vision, attract people. Inherently you need to be confident as a leader. So where does the confidence come for you to show up, each day and tell your story and share your vision?
Maybe it goes back to the question you had earlier on, which was like, tell me about what my first experience in selling. I think once you have built experience knowing that you can deliver outcomes, that's where you get your confidence. And every time you go and deliver more and more and more and more outcomes for more and more customers in different situations, and then you go global and then you have different types of customers, it kind of gives you the builds a really strong foundation of the impact and the opportunity that you can offer to the next customer. So I would say that's probably my number one place that I've picked up confidence from, just from delivering on the potential and then making sure. So that's one thing. Second thing is the opportunity. I always think about doing more. I'm not particularly satisfied with where we are right now. So I'm optimistic for the future and being able to drive even more impact for more customers, for more enterprise sellers. And we haven't cracked the code on that 100% yet. So there's still a lot of work to be done.
It's great. But I think, referencing proof points and actually gaining experience from demonstrating the successful impact, that increases your belief and confidence on the value that you can create for one set. So why can't you create that for a lot more people? And that's something that, I'm excited about, even with our partnership with Databooks, is how we can tell more of this story, so people can see the value that Databook can create in their business. On your journey, either in your career or on the founder's journey, and depending on how comfortable you are sharing, has there been a particular experience of hardship where you've kind of been hit quite hard and you've had to kind of overcome that experience to kind of put you on the straight and narrow and rise up again?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's a ton of ups and downs. I'd say probably the catalyst for me starting Databook was probably just prior. My previous consulting career, been doing a whole ton of really interesting things, working globally with some amazing team members and working on a sort of a very diverse variety of accounts around the world. And in most consulting careers, there's a sort of ladder up and up the trajectory to get to the next level. And that's typically the peak of that is the partnership track. And so you have to kind of put together a whole business case for why you believe you're ready for that partnership, and you have to have enough sponsors around that. And sure, I had a lot of support and I put a business case together, but I got rejected that first time. And it was a big blow to me, given that I thought that the business case was solid and that there was millions of dollars being created through the work I'd been involved in. And so that was a pretty big setback for me, I would say. I didn't see that coming. But I think from my perspective, it allowed me to sort of realize that there was still a lot of value of what I was doing, but perhaps the vehicle wasn't the right vehicle. And so the catalyst for me was then say, great, well, perfect time for me to go out on my own, move countries, go set up something. And so here we are 7 years later now, and out my own. And I think that I just required that catalyst. And I'm not someone who will just get down too much from a setback. I try to find silver lining and build on that.
Amazing response to that type of setback. Really interesting journey. Just for you personally, running this type of business as a CEO, like how do you just look after yourself, kind of like mentally, from a well-being and a health perspective?
I mean, it's really, really tough, and not just me. Like for any of our team members and our customers, I know that in particular over the last 3 years with COVID and all of the restrictions, it's really, really tough. And so I definitely try and recommend to all of our team members to try and get some exercise in frequently, however they might want to do that, in the mornings, afternoons. For me, I love a run a couple of times a week in the morning. Go for a couple of calls when I'm doing one-to-ones, just as an audio call, and I'll do a long walk and get some more steps in. That definitely helps during the week. Sort of refresh the brain. During the summers, try to get more biking in, and so exercise is kind of like a big thing. I used to do some yoga. I haven't done that recently. I'm thinking about picking some of that back up again. So that's also useful both for exercise and for mental health. And then just taking some time off and getting involved with some extracurricular activities on weekends or on vacations or holidays, just trying to completely decompress from all of the work that's going on during the week. So I'm quite competitive in work and outside of work. I try and improve my sports when I can, whether that's tennis or if it's golf or something like that. Just try and take my mind off the day to day. Nice.
So it sounds like you're going to be back in your yoga pants in 2023 with on your list to do. Okay, so we're coming to the end. I always like to kind of leave on something that you want to impart on the audience that maybe we haven't covered, or just a thought or perspective that you would want people to take away having got to this point in the interview. So is there something you would like to leave the audience with and share with us today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing or a few things related to building on all of the experience and the stories from today's conversation, I'd say just learn the craft. It doesn't, success doesn't happen overnight. Put the effort in, get really focused on building a point of view, being really distinctive, have the conviction of what that point of view means for your customer, how your solutions, how you individually can drive value for them, and I'd say, yeah, just be curious about that, continue learning, and success will follow. And the folks who are doing that, I see tremendous impact in their career, getting multiple promotions quickly through that. But it's because they're doing the right things. So I'd say, just keep your head down, get on with it, learn the craft of building your understanding of your customers and helping your customers first, and then trying to figure out how you're going to meet your quota second. The money will follow.
Amazing. I think it's been really great to hear like the personal stories behind how you've built Databook. So thank you everybody for listening today. You've been listening to the Sales Confidence Podcast. I'm your host, James Skee. founder of Sales Confidence, and we've had Anand Shah, who is the CEO and co-founder of Databook. And I think some really valuable takeaways here today from how you evolve and develop your enterprise sales career when it comes to kind of up-leveling your understanding of the C-suite, bringing the right information to the table so that you can kind of inform and inspire the buyers that you're working with from a solutions perspective, but also focus and double down on those relationships and being deeply inherently curious. I've seen the power of Databook in a number of account situations. And so if you're looking for a solution where you want access to real-time company intelligence on your prospects and your customers, better understanding of the C-suite, better understanding of the financial performance and health of a business, and you want to understand the strategic priorities in a very accessible way, Databook is absolutely a platform you should check out. And I look forward to getting you back home in London, Anand, for a session in 2023. So thanks very much for being on the show today.
Absolutely, James. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the partnership. Looking forward to 2023. Happy holidays to you and everyone else.
Likewise.